Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the scheduled and tribal areas. Okay, this is the topic on which we have been discussing right now. And basically within this topic, or you can say within this particular series of the schedule and the tribal areas, okay, we have arranged these topics like the introduction part, like the scheduled areas in India and overview of it, like the criteria for identification of the scheduled areas, okay, then the constitutional provisions and the governance, then concerns that are related to the scheduled areas, then administration of the scheduled areas, then the scheduled tribes, okay, then the general concerns of the tribal community, then addressing the challenges, okay, then the significance of the indigenous communities, then the problems faced by the tribal groups, then conclusion, and then the administration of tribal areas. Okay, so these are the topics that we had scheduled for the discussion. If we talk about the topics that we have covered so far, so basically we have done with the introduction part, we have done with the scheduled areas in India and overview, we have done with the criteria that we use for identify the scheduled areas, then constitutional provisions and governance. Okay, these are the topics that we have covered so far. If we talk about the topic that we are left with, so the topic on which we have been discussing right now, this is the concerns that are related to the scheduled areas. Okay, and the topic that we are left with, these are the administration of scheduled areas, scheduled tribes, okay, general concerns of the tribal community, addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems faced by tribal groups, conclusion, and the administration of tribal areas. Okay, so this is the picture that we have created so far all together. All right, in this lecture basically we will start from where we had left. Okay, so in the previous lecture basically we had started the discussion over the concerns that are related to the scheduled areas. Okay, that was a topic that we had started, and the first point that we discussed over there was this one: exclusion from article 244. Like we know, all the safeguards, all the provisions that we have for the schedule and the tribal areas, these are revolving around these articles. Article 244, fifth and sixth schedule. Okay, that's the thing. So now let's begin with the question. Sixth schedule deals with how many states, what are the name of these states? Again, I'm repeating. Sixth schedule deals with how many states, what is the name of these states. To answer this question, you will have 30 seconds to think and answer, and your time starts now. Just think about it. 10 seconds have been passed off, last 20s are remaining. We had discussed it many times, so this time I will not tolerate if you give the wrong answer. That's quite obvious. Last 10 seconds are there. Alright, the time's up. So the correct answer is Assam, Tripura, Mizoram, and Manipur. Again, I'm repeating Assam, Tripura, Mizoram, and Manipur. These are the four states, and these are the northeastern states that will deal by the Schedule 6. Okay, so we know like the significant portion, about 59% of the India's ST population is not covered under the Article 244. It means that they do not receive the special protections and the benefits, okay, that are accorded to the scheduled tribes in the scheduled areas. What I'm saying, not receive the special protection and the benefits that are accorded to the scheduled tribes in the scheduled areas. All right. And basically, this exclusion further denies them the rights that protected under laws that are applicable to the scheduled areas, and because of this they lacks the access to the resources and the protections. Okay, that is what we had covered. After this, basically we discussed the absence of viable administrative units. Like we know, in order to identify any area as a scheduled area, then basically that area must be a viable administrative unit, which means that area must be equipped to sustain the governance and also having the sufficient resources to manage the infrastructure and the administration. And then we discuss that basically the viable ST majority administrative units are absent, and that basically cited the bureaucratic challenge, leading to the exclusion of these tribes from the purview of Article 244. Okay, and these bureaucratic responses basically further fuel demands from the Adivasi organizations for the denotification of parts of the scheduled areas, as the creation of the viable administrative units had not been prioritized. And I had told you, because of this, they are not fully covered under the Article 244 and not fully let into the mainstream. Okay, that is the thing we had discussed. Now, basically, when we move further in the concerns that are related to the scheduled areas, if we move further, okay, then another thing that we have in front of us, that is the denial of rights. That is denial of. So, what is the meaning of this denial of rights? So, basically, here you can see, as a result of being outside the preview of Article 244, these tribes are basically denied the rights that are applicable to the scheduled areas. Okay, like as I have told you, if there are 10 areas, okay, area 1, area 2, area 3, area 4, area 5, area 6, area 7, area 8, area 9, area 10. Total 10 areas are there. Out of this, only the 3 areas are, you can say, sufficient to cross the threshold. Like we know, the Bhuria Committee in the year of 2002 basically proposed the minimum threshold, that is the population percentage of tribals. As per this, the area would be decided as a scheduled area and tribal area, and the Article 244 would be applicable to that accordingly. But out of these 10, only the 3 areas were crossing this threshold. Only the 3 areas were crossing this threshold, and the remaining 7 areas were not crossing the threshold. So, because of this, those 7 areas would be excluded from the preview of Article 244, and their rights would be denied under the laws that are applicable to the scheduled areas. For example, they are denied right under the right to fair compensation and transparency in the land acquisition, and thereafter the Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013. So here you can see that there are two things that are written over here, and these two are important. And how these two are important, let's discuss. First, if we talk about this one, okay, that is right to fair compensation and transparency in the land acquisition. All right. So here, if you look at here, what you are getting, fair compensation, and second is land acquisition and the transparency. If we talk about the scheduled areas, okay, if we talk about the tribal peoples, then generally, if you will look at the map of India, what you will find that their resettlement areas, the areas where they are residing, the residual areas, basically these areas are rich when we talk about the minerals. Okay, or you can say most of the Indian mineral resources are basically available in these areas. For example, the Chota Nagpur Plateau, the Deccan Plateau, okay, the Singhbhum and Chaubhau plateaus and all. Okay, these areas are basically inhabited by the tribal people, but these carries the various minerals. Okay, so basically, time to time, whether it's a private companies, whether it's a public companies or the government entities, basically they try to extract the minerals from those areas. Okay, and this concept is not so much new. This concept is already you can say existed in India from the British time. Britishers were also extracting the minerals from those areas. Okay, but the major problem that arises, or you can say not a problem, but the major concern or the major issue that arises whenever the extraction was to be begin, that was land acquisition. Okay, and then paying compensation for the land acquisition. What is the meaning of this? What I told you those areas where the tribals are living, those areas basically containing the significant mineral resources. All right, tribals, because they live with the harmony and peace with the nature, and they are not so much inclined to use these resources for the commercial purposes. Okay, so generally they do their you can say they make their residence there. All right, they started agriculture, other kind of activities and all these things. So we can say, suppose if there is the settlement of the tribals, there are total 5 villages. Okay, in the search of minerals, our satellite data provided us the insights that basically the land of these 5 villages is full of mineral resources. Okay, so now the country or the mainstream, basically what we try to extract these minerals so that we could earn the profit, and also these minerals could be used for the commercial purposes and for the national purposes. All right, but mining means that you are required to establish a mining plant, the heavy machineries, the transportation and all, and this could not be done without removing those villages from that area. Okay, because the new normal human settlement which is already there, this is to be removed, then only the thing could be proceed further. Right, that is the thing. So basically what happened in such a case, any company, suppose XYZ is the company that wants to do the mining there, then they will propose a development plan. Okay, give the presentation before of the state government. All right, or the president of India or the governor of the state. Okay, like they want to do the mining, what is their objective. All right, how beneficial that could be for the nation and all. All right, then if they get the approval, for example, if they get the approval, then they will remove that village from these areas. All right, because the villages, the normal human settlements could not be there when the mining was to be there. Okay, so they will remove those villages from there. All right, then the land of these villages would be acquired by the XYZ. Okay, that is what we call the land acquisition. It means that when an organization, whether private or government, acquires the land that was inhabited by the humans, okay, for some specific purpose, that is called the land acquisition. So those people who were living in these villages, they were required to give their land. Okay, so in response of it, basically compensation would be given to them. In Hindi, you will call it muavza. Okay, the compensation is required to give to those who were leaving their lands. Okay, so that the mining could be started. Now, if we talk about the compensation, so how this compensation calculated, what is the provision of this and all. So the first thing, remember here, there are two types of companies, private and public. Okay, so how you will identify whether the company is a private company or the public company. This is the first thing that we require to understand. So this is also going to be the question for you. You are required to tell me through which you will identify the company is private or public. To answer this question, 30 seconds you guys will have. Time starts now. Just think about it. All right, 10 seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Last 10 seconds. All right, the time's up. Okay. So the simple answer of it is this. If the company is the private company, the company will carry PVT Limited, private limited. Okay. If the company is the public company, then it will only carry the limited. For example, suppose XYZ is a company. Now we are required to identify whether the XYZ is a public company or the private company. So we will see the full name of it. If the name is XYZ Private Limited, if the name is XYZ Private Limited, then the company is the private company. If the name is XYZ Limited, then the company would be government company. Okay. So that's how you will identify it whether the company is the private company or the government company. That's it. Okay. So another thing that it's going to be this. All right. Most of the time you have heard about the triple P method. Okay. Whenever we talk about the trade, commerce, and all. Okay. So most of the times you have heard about the triple P method. Okay. So now you are required to tell me what is the meaning of triple P method. Okay. What is the full form of it? To answer this question, again, you will have 30 seconds to think and answer. All right. And your time is going to be start now. 10 seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Last 10 seconds. All right. The time's up. So the correct answer is the triple P stands for the public private partnership. Public private partnership. Now, what is the significance of this? So, this is going to be our next question. You are required to tell me what are the three types of economies. Okay. Again, I'm repeating the question. You are required to tell me what is the three types of economies. To answer this question, I will grant you 40 seconds this time. And your time starts now. Just think about what are the three types of economies. All right. This is the most basic question I could ever ask anyone. Okay. All right. The 20 seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Last 10 seconds. Okay, the time's up. So the correct answer is three types of economies: the capitalist economy, the socialist economy, and the mixed economy. In the capital economy, basically, the market forces that are the demand and supply, these are basically, you can say, decided by the private firms. Okay. And you can say private firms are the, you can say, main players that decided the three most basic question of the economics. Okay. So now this is the another question that I have formulated for you. What are the three most basic question of the economy? To answer this question, 30 seconds you will have. Time starts now. Just think about it. 10 seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Last 10 seconds. Okay, the time's up. So basically, the three most basic questions of the economics are what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. It means basically the economic resources are limited in number. Okay. So first is what to produce. It means what you want to produce from those resources. Second is how to produce. It means what technique you will use, labor intensive or capital intensive. In labor intensive technology, basically more and more human worker employed in the work. In the capital intensive technology, more and more machines employed in the work. And the last is for whom to produce. You are producing it for the lower class, you are producing it for the middle class, or you are producing the items for the high class. Okay, this is the thing. So all these three most basic questions and even the demand and supply, these are controlled by the private firms in the capitalist economy. The good answer is United States of America, that is the capitalist country. Thereafter, second is socialist. In socialist, basically the entire control is handled by the government. The government is having the entire control of the resources of the things that are available. Market forces like the demand and supply would be handled by the government. Even the three most basic questions of this economy would be answered by the government only. The perfect example was Russia. Okay, however, this time it is also the mixed economy, but that was the Russia. Third is the mixed economy. The mixed economies means where neither the private has all the powers nor the government have all the powers, but they both are working same. So basically, the PPP model also works on the mixed economy model, where private firms collaborated with the public firms that are under the government and then started the work together. Okay. So now, if we come back to the topic after finishing the small quiz, then we can say whenever any company formulated a request to acquire the land in the scheduled and tribal areas for any purpose, then basically they required the approval and approval from the affected families. Now, let's go back to the Gram Sabha or the PASA Act. PASA stands for the Panchayat Extension to the Scheduled Areas, where I had told you if there is any mining and development project that is to be started in that particular area or the village that was under the schedule and the tribal area, then the approval is required. And approval from whom? Approval from the Gram Sabha is required. Okay. In the same manner, the approval is required for the land acquisition, but not from the Gram Sabha, but from the affected families. It means that if we talk about the case of 5 villages, the example that we had taken, so it means that out of these 5 villages that are going to be affected, at least 70% of families would be agree if this is to be acquired by the, you can say, private firm. Okay, or private company is going to acquire the land. Again, I'm repeating, out of these 5 villages, at least 70% of the affected families must be in favor or must be agreed to give their land. And when it is a case of public private partnership, triple P method, then at least 80% affected families must be in favor. Okay, 70% private, 80% public private. Okay, then only the land acquisition could be begin. Thereafter, the next is the compensation. So, how the compensation decided? That is another thing. Okay, so basically, if we talk about the fair compensation, okay, so that is decided on the basis of market value. Okay, on the basis of market value, what is the current market value of this land? For example, if there is field that is of 10 lakh rupees, the market value is of 10 lakh rupees, then the compensation that would be granted to the person who owns this land would not be less than 10 lakhs. It could be more than 10 lakhs, but not less than 10 lakhs. So, compensation would be granted to the people who got displaced, okay, on the basis of the market value. All right. But there is one provision also. And what is that provision? The provision is simple, that basically the market value is 5 times when it's a rural and it's 2 times when it's urban. So what you are getting from it? Let me tell you in short way. Suppose if there is land, okay, there is any land that is acquired by a people, okay, the total value of that land, or you can say the market value of that particular land is rupees 10 lakh rupees. Okay, then if the land lies in the rural area, then the land would be sell at 5 times of the market value. It means that 5 into 10, 50 lakh rupees would be granted as an compensation to the person who owned this land and who gave this land for the mining project. Okay, if the land is worth rupees 30 lakhs and in the urban area, all right, then that would be sell at the market price but multiply by 2. It means that total 30 into 2, 60 lakhs would be granted as the compensation. All right, that would be a thing. So that's how the compensation, you can say, decided. It will be 5 times when it is a rural area and it will be 2 times when it will be a urban area. Okay, urban area less. Why? Because generally the land value in the urban areas are higher when we compare it to the rural areas. Okay, so students, basically in this lecture we have finished till here. In the next lecture we will continue from here. Till then, just revise the facts and figures that all we have discussed in this lecture. Be ready for the next lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture and thank you.